Hi, and welcome back to Learn How to Program. Today we are going to talk about what are functions. This is part 3. So what are functions? Well, functions are pieces of code built to execute specific actions. Like always, here's an example to the rescue. So let's say I have 50 followers on my social media account. It took me 10 days to get them. I would like to know how many I will have after 1 year. Well, you say, math? Are you serious, John? Yes, we are going to do just a little bit of math, but just hang in there with me. So 50 followers divided by 10 days. So that's 5 followers per day. So far, so good. So yes, I am serious about continuing with the math. As we know, there are 365 days in a year. Don't be a smarty pants. Yes, if it's a leap year, it's more. I know. Let's get back to programming. So now some multiplication. Let's say that we have 5 followers per day times 365 days in a year. That is 1,825 followers after 1 year. Congrats, that was a function, or that's actually something that we could transform into a function. So given 5 followers per day, how many followers will I have after 1 year? So this is kind of what our function looks like so far. So we have an input and we have an output. With the input of 5, we have an output of 1825. With 7, 2,555. With 67, 24,455. You get the picture. There's an input, there's an output. This is a function that takes how many followers you have per day, multiplies it by 365, and then it gives you how many you will have after 1 year has elapsed. So what does this actually look like if we transform this into code? Well, as you can see, it definitely is not a lot of code, but a lot of this syntax is going to be new to us. So the first part that I want to talk about is fun. So one thing that I really like about the Kotlin programming language is that instead of saying function, they abbreviated it to fun. So as you can see, programming is fun and you should stick with it. So that's the first part that I wanted to highlight. The second part that I wanted to highlight was the name. So like variables, you can name a function anything you want to name it. But what I highly recommend is for you to use actions, to use verbs like calculate or play or find. That's just a convention that a lot of programmers use, and it works really well. The next part is parameter or parameters, because actually you could have a ton of different parameters, comma separated. In this case, we only have one parameter, and the parameter is followers per day. Then the next part would be the return type. In this case, the return type of this function is going to be an int. So an int is going to come into the function through a parameter. We are going to do something to it, and then it's going to be spit back out also as an int. We could have alternatively, for example, taken a string as a parameter and then return a date, or a string and then return a character. It's completely up to the programmer. The next part that we want to talk about is the body. So in this case, the body is actually really short. If you actually have something to return, like in our case, we have to return an int, then you use the return keyword, which you can see. So you write something like return space, and then you take the parameter and you do something with it. So what this does is it multiplies followers per day times 365. That's what we've actually done with our parameter, and then it returns it. And since we have declared that this is an int, we know that what is returned is also an int. So looking at all this stuff, you might be thinking, okay, I give up. This is already way too much. Well, what I want to say is don't give up. Let's just take a look at this again very slowly. So we have the first part, which is fun, the function declaration, then a space. Then we have the name, which has to be, well, it should be like an action. So like calculate or find or play. Then we have the parameter or parameters, followed by the return type at number 4. And then at number 5, we have the actual body. So the body is where the meat of your function is actually happening. That's where you determine what am I actually doing with the stuff that comes in so that I get what I want on the other side. So as always, I want to remind you guys to not give up. If I numbered and labeled what an email looks like and you hadn't seen one before, that would also be intimidating. So chew on that a little bit. So let's try this again. The first part is the function declaration, fun, followed by the name of it, which can be anything, just like a variable. Then number 3 is the parameter, so what comes in. Number 4 is the type of what comes out. And number 5, which can sometimes be really short, like in this case, or really long, number 5 is the body of the function. So what you are actually doing to the input to get the output that you want. So are you feeling better? Great. Awesome. Let's try another example. So Samantha is awesome. Samantha is in 2nd grade and she is 7 years old and she wants to be an astronaut someday. The problem is boys at her school make fun of her and keep saying things like, girls can't be astronauts, girls can't fly spaceships, girls can't use computers as well as boys can. Well, Samantha needs your help. Samantha needs you to help her write a function that replaces girls can't with girls can in any provided sentence. So this is something that we could actually do with functions. So here's a hint. We've actually done something like this before. Go back to the examples in the first video, part 0. There's one of me replacing every A with nothing. That's what the quotes mean, with nothing in between them. So if you were able to figure that out on your own, that's awesome. But just in case you weren't, here's the code that's going to rescue Samantha. So as you can see, we have a function called replace girls can't with can. This function takes in a parameter, a sentence. Remember, we can name our function whatever we want. And then it returns a string. So the input is a string, the output is a string. Then what it does is we take the sentence and then we replace girls can't with girls can. And at the very bottom, we actually have the console output for this. So as you can see, girls can't be astronauts was transformed into girls can be astronauts. And girls can't fly spaceships was transformed into girls can fly spaceships. And girls can't use computers as well as boys can was transformed into girls can use computers as well as boys can. So let's take a look at the anatomy of this function. So the very first part is fun or function. Then we have replace girls can't with can, which is the name of our function. The input is a sentence of type string, and the output is also a string. So then we have the body of our function. And what this does is for the incoming sentence, that parameter right there, we replace every single occurrence of girls can't with girls can. So really nice job. Samantha was able to write a function to show those boys that girls definitely can do all of those things. But let's go back to the magic formula of creating a function. Give your function a name. Verbs are good. Figure out what needs to come in, parameters. Figure out what data type needs to come out. Remember, a data type would be something like a string, a character, an integer, a date, for example. Do something to your parameter and then return it. So once again, number 1, give your function a name. Think action like find or calculate or replace. Figure out what needs to come in. Figure out what kind of data needs to go out. And then number 4, you need to do something to your parameter and then return it. So the best thing that we could possibly do right now to get this function stuff in our head is to follow this link and go to the GitHub repository where our exercises are going to be waiting for you. Once you've clicked on that link, then you will be in the repository. We just copy and paste this lovely thing right here. And actually, pro tip, I've had a lot more success with incognito windows because for some reason this play.kotlin.lang thing uses cookies, and it's just a lot simpler if every single time that you run this, you start from scratch. Okay, great. Look at that. This is exactly what we wanted to see. And now let's go to the top right here to make sure that this is actually working. Awesome. That is exactly what I wanted to see. All right. So please don't be intimidated, but we have 2 exercises to solve. 2 exercises where your job is going to be to fix some method stubs. What are method stubs, you may ask? Well, glad you asked. Method stubs are just methods that are there, but the stuff that they return isn't really important. So let's start with the first exercise right here. We are going to fix this method to do what is in the description. To give you a better idea of actually what we are going to be doing, let's take a look at example sentence 1. So example sentence 1 says, I went to the coffee shop the other day and met up with Waldo. The second one says, Mary had a little lamb. And the third one says, Samantha built a robot named Waldo. Very interesting. All of these have something to do with Waldo. So what we're actually going to do is we are going to detect Waldo in each of these sentences. So whenever we find Waldo, we want to return something of type Boolean, which is exactly what has already been done for us right here, except that this always returns false. So don't worry about this like fancy printing that I did. All you have to worry about is this method step. What I also went ahead and did is I created just a nice way of printing this out that you don't have to worry about so that we can easily verify our work. What I mean by that is after we run this, you get sentence and then the string, the original string. And then this tells you if it was found or not. So right now it says, I went to the coffee shop the other day and met up with Waldo. And then it says that Waldo was not found in this string, but Waldo is clearly here. And it was also not found here, and it was also not found here. That's because in this exercise right here, it always returns false. So we need to do something to this in order to make it work. What do we need to do? Well, write a function named isWaldo_here. This function should take a string as a parameter. Name that parameter sentence. The return type of this function should be a Boolean. In the body of this function, we want to check if the sentence contains Waldo. Waldo, Waldo, and Waldo should all return true. Notice that all of these have different upper and lowercase settings. Any sentence without Waldo should return false. Hint, use to lowercase. All right. And also hint, use dot contains. Okay, so if you were able to do this on your own, I'm very impressed, but you probably were not able to. So let's take this step by step. We need to return something. That's cool. So it's good to have this return keyword here. And we need to return a Boolean. So this is all correct so far. So return, and then we need to do something to the sentence. Well, sentence. Great. So now what do we do? Well, if you click on dot, if it cooperates, it usually shows you all of the different things that you can do on a string, all of the different methods that you could use on a string. Here you go. Look at this big old list right here. So let's not worry about methods right now, but basically it allows you to do something to the string. So in this case, what we actually want to first do is to do something called a to lower case. And then what we want to do after we've transformed this into to lowercase is we want to do something called a contains. Now what we want to check for is Waldo. Okay, so that was kind of confusing, but let's see if we can figure this out. What I first did is every incoming sentence, so for example, Waldo was here, and Waldo was here, and let me think of another one. There you go. Waldo was here. All of these should return true, but that can only happen if we can compare this in a way that they're all kind of equal. So what I'm doing is I take in this sentence and then I transform it to lowercase. So what this method here does is it transforms this guy right here into this guy right here. So now there is a Waldo that's lowercase. And then what I do is I chain these methods. So method 1, then method 2, and then I do a contains Waldo. And as you can see, now this has been changed from upper to lower. We can compare it effectively, and this will actually return true. If I didn't have this in here, then when you try to do a contains on this right here, you would actually get false, which is not what we actually wanted. So the first thing you need to do is to transform it to lower case. Excellent. And then a dot contains, and then a Waldo. All right, really nice job. But let's see if this actually worked. So first of all, what I want to do is I want to clean this up. Next thing that I want to do is I want to run this. So let's rerun. All right, sentence, I went to the coffee shop the other day and met up with Waldo was true. Excellent, we found Waldo. Sentence, Mary had a little lamb was false. Excellent, because there's no Waldo in here. Sentence number 3, Samantha built a robot named Waldo, was also true because this was first transformed to lowercase, and then we called contains on this. And what that contains actually does is it takes a string, any string, and then it transforms it into a Boolean type. So it gives you a true or a false value. So this is really common in programming where you have a parameter type or a parameter of one type, and then you actually return something of a totally different type. So string comes in, Boolean comes out. So don't worry too much about the details of this stuff, but just know that you can take in pretty much a parameter of any type, and you can return also any type. It's very cool. So the next exercise that we want to take a look at is an initial investment exercise. So your crazy uncle Bob, he told you about this really awesome stock, and he said that he came up with a mathematical formula that works foolproof. So basically what he told you is if you put in this amount of money, then follow this formula, after a year you're going to have this other amount of money. And this was actually his formula. So first let's read this exercise, and then let's talk about the formula. I got ahead of myself a little bit. Write a function named calculate my profit. This function should take an int as a parameter. Name that parameter initial investment. The return type of this function should be an int. In the body of the function, we want to multiply a number by itself and then add the result of dividing the initial investment by 3. So you might be saying, John, I hate you. I hate these kind of word problems and stuff like that. So what often happens in programming jobs is that somebody has some sort of a formula that they need to follow. There is some sort of an input and some sort of an output. And actually, this is not going to be nearly as bad as you might think it is. So let's just follow exactly what it says. It says multiply the number by itself. So initial, let's wait a second and see if oh yeah, perfect. Let's click on that. Initial investment times initial investment. Awesome. Plus initial investment divided by 3. So let's review. We have our function. Here's the name of our function. It has an input of type int. It has an output of type int. Then what we do is we follow this formula that was given to us. It's not always going to be this neat, and functions are often way longer than this, but I wanted to give you guys just some easy to digest examples that you can take with you home and hopefully understand right away. We just follow this formula, initial investment times initial investment plus initial investment divided by 3, and then we return it. This return is very important. So now if we rerun this, hopefully, crossing our fingers, we are going to come to the correct numbers. And look at that. So once again, I kind of did some pretty printing here. If you want to see how that works, just take a look at this thing right here. What it actually does is it does something called templating. So what you can do is you can create a string. Within this string, you call this variable, which is this parameter right here. And then you also add this variable right here. And then you can kind of like write some stuff wherever you want to write it. And what it will do is it'll do your initial investment of value of this variable, this guy, is now value of this variable, which is this guy. And then it will print it out really nice and neat for you. But anyways, getting back to the actual numbers, you invested $5 and now you have 26. Not bad. You invested $500 into this stock, and now you have, whoa, look at that, $250,166. And then you decided, nah, I really don't want to invest with my crazy uncle, and then you got 0. That's a bummer. So it looks like crazy uncle was right, and we should have invested, but we didn't, so it sucks for us. But anyways, great job today. That was kind of a lot. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments section. But right now, we're going to head back to the summary. So summarizing, functions are pieces of code built to execute specific actions. Functions take parameters like our initial investment or our sentences, then they transform them and then return them as something different. Remember, it could be the same data type, or it could be 2 different data types. So you could have a string coming in and then a Boolean coming out, or an int coming in, and then a date, for example, coming out. So now would actually be a really good time for you to stop my video. I know, I'm a guy on YouTube telling you to stop your video. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to go over some homework. So the homework is in that link right there. You can click on that first link or the second link. What I want you guys to do is I want you to try and see if you can complete it. Don't worry too much about actually completing it. What I want you guys to do, though, is to try and see if you can figure out the answers to this homework on your own. Experiment, fail some more, get a little bit frustrated, go get some coffee, come back, and then we can try this stuff together. So welcome to the homework section. I promise this is not going to be nearly as hard as you might actually imagine it. So once again, what we have to do is we have to fix two method stubs. The method stubs are down here. One of them is called Can I Retire? And the other is Play Matchmaker. Right now we are going to focus on Can I Retire? So let's go ahead and read out this exercise and see what we can do. It says, write a function named Can I Retire? This function should take an int as a parameter. Name that parameter my money. If the value is above 1,000,000, then print out yes. If the value is above 500,000, print out maybe. Else, print out nope. Notice there is no return type here. This is because we don't need one. We just want to print something out, not to return it. Okay, so that's something that I wanted to highlight. So right here, instead of returning something like an int or like a string or a char, this time we are just going to be printing something out. So that means that this part right here can be blank, unlike in our previous exercises for this video. And then here in the body, we just need to print something out. Now, after reading this, what you should be thinking of is, if, else, or you should be thinking about conditional statements. If you need a refresher on that, please go back to the video on ifs. That would be the previous video. So let's just follow and see what this actually says to do. So it says, if my money is greater than, keyword is greater than, then print line and yes. And now there's another conditional. So whenever you see a conditional, followed by another conditional, you should be thinking else if, so that you can provide yet another condition. And the next condition that it says to provide is my money is greater than 500,000. Okay, great. So far, so good. And it says that we need to print out, what does it say? Oh yeah, maybe. All right, excellent. Now the last thing we need to do is the else. So if you remember from the past video, after this one fails and this one fails, we need some sort of a fallback. You don't have to provide it, but in this case, it says that the fallback should be else print out nope. So we just simply type in else, open bracket, close bracket, and then print line, and then nope. Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. Okay, great. So let's play this and verify that this actually worked. Great. Now it says maybe, nope, nope. So you might be thinking, okay, I took a look at the stuff up here, John, and I don't understand why it printed out maybe, nope, nope. This is actually totally correct. Let me explain. So it says, can I retire? And then 1,000,000. All right, so let's scroll down here. So let's run through this together. If it's 1,000,000, it does if 1,000,000 is greater than 1,000,000. Oh, look at that. 1,000,000 we know is not greater than 1,000,000. So this condition right here fails, and it goes to the next one. If my money is greater than 500,000, then print out maybe. And that explains why this here is maybe. For the next one, it's similar. 500,000 goes in. That is obviously not greater than 1,000,000, so it goes here. But it's also obviously not greater than 500,000. It's the same. So then it goes to this last one right here. And then this last value, this 0, that's obviously not greater than 1,000,000 and not greater than 500,000. If you wanted to come up with some values to actually print out these statements, what you would have to do, for example, is to increase this because that's greater than 1,000,000, or increase this guy, which would make it greater than 500,000. So now we should see yes, maybe, and nope. So let's click run, See what happens? Yes, maybe, nope. Excellent. Make sure that you understand why and kind of play around with these numbers too. Like try like decreasing this number or increasing the number up here, just messing around with it. It's pretty cool stuff. But now we want to get to exercise 2. So in exercise number 2, we want to write a function named playMatchmaker. This function should take 3 parameters. All will be a type string. Name the first one person1, this guy. The second one person2. And the third one new last name. The return type of this function should be a string, this guy right here. In the body of the function, we want to return person1 will marry person2, and their new last name will be new last name. If you're confused as to how you might go about this, then check out example function 1 at the very top or example function 2. They do the same thing in different ways. You'll see what I mean. Happy coding. All right, so let me explain what I actually mean by that. So this uses templating that we talked about earlier in this lesson. So basically what you can do is you can take a variable, put it into a string, and then using this kind of fancy $, open bracket, close bracket right here, what it will do is it will actually compute this. So if, for example, I were to type in, I don't know, Sarah right here, then this would be replaced by Sarah. So if Sarah goes in here, Sarah will be printed out here, and then it would also do the same over here. So let's say if this was Sarah, and this is John, then this is going to be Sarah. You can add text here, John, or here, which is nonsensical. So we need to actually make something different, something that actually makes sense in our exercise in order to be able to complete it. So what it says to do, so actually let's just go ahead and copy this. Let's copy this code snippet and see if we can figure this out. So it says, in the body of the function, we want to return person1 will marry person2. So let's do that. So let's do person1. And then let's copy and paste because we get tired quickly. Oh, that's kind of weird. All right, awesome. So now it says person1 will marry. So now we need to add the $, bracket, person2, and their new last name will be new last name. So actually, if we play this right now, this is still wrong. And let me explain why. That's because this guy right here, or actually, I'm going to just go ahead and pause the video and see if you can figure it out. All right, glad that you're back. So it's because this guy right here needs this. Because if it doesn't have this right here, it's just going to literally print out new last name, which is not what we want. So going up to these examples, now we are going to do this a little bit differently. In the can I retire, we added a print line inside of the function. In the playMatchmaker, we call playMatchmaker. That returns a value. And then using print line, we print that value. So don't get too caught up on that. I just wanted to let you guys know that you can do print lines inside of functions, or you can take the result of a function call. This is a function call, and then print it like we've been doing all along. Anyways, so what this will do is print line, playMatchmaker. Input is person1, John, person2, actually that's my wife, person3, Davis, actually that's my last name. So when we actually hit run on this, it will do, well, it already did it. John will marry Leah and their new last name will be, well, no, let's rerun this. Will be Davis, that's my last name. Abraham will marry Mary, and their new last name will be Lincoln. That is Abraham Lincoln and his wife, Mary. And now the third one, I found this from the internet. I thought that it was pretty funny because apparently in some parts of the internet, it told me that Beyonce's last name was Knowles Carter, and other parts it told me that it was just Knowles. But anyways, I'm not sure if this is very true, but it just it's something that I used for the example, and I don't really care if it's true or not true. Anyway, so print line, playMatchmaker, Beyonce, and then Sean, which is also Jay-Z for those of you that don't really know a whole lot about pop culture. I don't either, but whatever. You type in person1, person2, and this right here is the new last name. Bada bing, bada boom. Beyonce will marry Sean, and their new last name will be Knowles Carter. Really good job on the homework. So great job. But here's my 2 cents. First of all, I want you to just take a break. Take a day break, a 2-day break. Don't look at my videos for a while. Just kind of relax, think about this stuff, go work out, get some exercise, and then what I want you to do is to come back to this video later. Play it all again, or just play the parts that didn't make any sense to you, and see if you can one by one eliminate things that you don't understand. If there's something that you don't understand, please write in the comments section. I will gladly respond. But also, I want to let you know, do not get discouraged. You can totally do this. When I first started programming, I looked up tutorials like this all the time, and I got discouraged because I couldn't really follow a lot of the stuff, so I tried to make it as simple as possible. There is no problem and absolutely nothing wrong with you if you need to go over this stuff over and over and over, especially if this is the first time you've ever programmed. Again, if there's any outstanding questions, please reach out. Hey, good job, team. You know what'd be awesome? If you subscribe. So here's the thing. I make these videos for free. I love doing it. I love programming. I love teaching programming. But if you want me to keep doing these things, I would really like it if you subscribe. It lets me know that I'm doing well and that you like it and that you want more stuff. All right. Have a great day. Bye.